volta, a cui mi sto anche rivolgendo, ovviamente, a loro volta vedono colui che interviene. Questo meccanismo consente dunque l'interprete simultanea nelle due lingue, italiano e inglese. Grazie a tutti. Vi do il benvenuto a nome della Fondazione Einaudi a questa seconda iniziativa, come dicevo prima, sugli accordi di Abramo, che fa seguito ad un precedente evento tenutosi online lo scorso 1° febbraio, che ha riscontrato un notevole successo e copertura mediatica. Scusate, io sento però il traduttore, non dovrei sentirlo, credo, che ha riscontrato un notevole successo e copertura mediatica tra i più importanti quotidiani nazionali ed esteri, e che ha contato la presenza degli ambasciatori dei paesi firmatari e non in Italia, firmatari del patto di Abramo, nonché di numerosi esperti geopolitici del settore provenienti da enti, istituzioni e realtà accademiche di tutto il mondo. L'incontro odierno, voluto fortemente dall'ambasciatore Giulio Terzi di Sant'Agata e dall'onorevole Nierestein, che sono colonne portanti della Fondazione Einaudi e si occupano in particolare di grandi temi di politica internazionale, intende approfondire le tematiche richiamate nel precedente ed è incentrato sul fondamentale ed essenziale ruolo degli accordi di Abramo per la conservazione della pace, per la promozione dell'economia liberale e per assicurare lo sviluppo sia tra gli stati firmatari dell'accordo, sia anche in riferimento all'Unione Europea e agli equilibri geopolitici globali. Il webinar, come vi dicevo prima, è frutto di una collaborazione congiunta tra la Fondazione Einaudi, il Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs e la Euro Gulf Information Center. Ha quindi come obiettivo finale quello di evidenziare quali sono le opportunità di cooperazione politica e di sicurezza in Medio Oriente. Il webinar si dividerà in 2 panel introdotti rispettivamente dall'onorevole Fiamma Nierestein e dall'ambasciatore Giulio Terzi, come vi dicevo prima, entrambi membri del comitato scientifico della Fondazione Luigi Einaudi, l'ambasciatore Terzi componente dell'Advisory Board. E vedrà inoltre la illustrissima partecipazione di esperti nelle materie afferenti in diversi settori coinvolti, appartenenti a think tank e università di rilievo mondiali provenienti da Israele, dal Bahrain, dagli Emirati Arabi Uniti. Il primo panel tratterà la delicatissima questione della sicurezza dello spazio aereo e il suo ruolo strategico relativamente non solo alla sicurezza e alla pace, obiettivi questi prioritari, ma anche a tematiche sensibili per il pianeta come l'ambiente e la sostenibilità. Senza dimenticare ovviamente quanto le ripercussioni sulla sicurezza aerea nelle regioni medio orientali arrivano a coinvolgere anche l'Italia e l'Unione Europea. Il secondo panel è incentrato invece sullo sviluppo responsabile e sostenibile, sul ruolo dell'acqua. Così, a proposito, saluto l'amico Lecto, altro autorevole membro del comitato scientifico della Fondazione, che si occupa in particolare di questo tema. Vi dicevo, così come tema enunciato dall'accordo di Abramo nei suoi pilastri, e che saranno approfonditi questi temi nel prosieguo dell'incontro dall'ambasciatore Terzi e dai partecipanti. Ed è in particolare proprio la questione relativa all'acqua e alle risorse idriche a rivestire massima importanza e priorità nell'obiettivo comune di pace non solo nella regione medio orientale ma anche nel contesto dell'Unione Europea. Colgo infine dunque l'occasione per ringraziare il Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, la Euro Gulf Information Center per la loro preziosa collaborazione nell'organizzazione congiunta di questo importantissimo evento. E ringrazio inoltre tutti i partecipanti, i numerosi che grazie alla loro esperienza e conoscenze nel campo sapranno fornire una visione d'insieme fondamentale su cui sia o dovrebbe essere il percorso intrapreso per assicurare la più efficace implementazione degli accordi sia nell'area medio orientale sia di riflesso nell'Unione Europea. Qui mi fermo ricordando che nel corso del primo incontro ho avuto modo di dire come gli accordi di Abramo siano stati un faro, una luce nel tunnel buio dell'anno 2020. Abbiamo compreso ora, e devo dire Fiamma e Giulio mi hanno aiutato a capire in questi mesi, come certamente gli accordi di Abramo non sono limitati a un anno, a un periodo, sono uno degli elementi fondamentali, a nostro avviso, per uno sviluppo di un'economia di pace nel mondo. Devono essere un faro di insegnamento per tutti i popoli di questo nostro pianeta. In questo senso l'impegno della Fondazione Einaudi continuerà e prima di lasciare la parola come da programma all'onorevole Nirestan abbiamo la gratita sorpresa di avere con noi il presidente di una delle più antiche e prestigiose fondazioni italiane, la Fondazione Piccolo, che è sita in Sicilia, che vuole portare un saluto e farci anche un piacevole e gradevole, spero, annuncio. A te la parola, Andrea.
Grazie Presidente, un cordiale e riconoscente saluto all'ambasciatore Terzi, all'onorevole Nierestein, al professor Letu, che ho il piacere di conoscere personalmente, e a tutti gli illustrissimi ospiti di questo interessantissimo webinar. Io sono presidente della Fondazione Famiglia Piccolo di Calanovella, una fondazione culturale che si trova a Capodorlando, la cui sede è a Capodorlando, di fronte alle Isole Eolie, e che ha raccolto il testimone della Sicilia dei Gattopardi nelle stanze della villa della Fondazione di Villa Piccolo. Giuseppe Tomasi di Lampedusa ha scritto gran parte del suo più famoso, della sua opera più famosa, il romanzo Il Gattopardo. Per questo motivo avrei piacere di sottoporre alla vostra attenzione l'invito di organizzare nel prossimo mese di giugno, magari di luglio o comunque in quel periodo, un incontro a Capodorlando di presenza, un incontro fisico finalmente potremmo dire, nel quale non solo poter godere naturalmente delle bellezze della natura, del parco meraviglioso che abbiamo lì a Capodorlando, ma anche di alimentare quell'afflato fraterno, quel confronto costruttivo che con gli accordi di Abramo ha normalizzato e tende a normalizzare sempre più la situazione medio orientale, e che grazie anche a questi incontri che la Fondazione Einaudi ha organizzato, grazie appunto all'ambasciatore Terzi principalmente, si va costruendo sempre di più. Del resto la Sicilia si trova al centro del Mediterraneo. Noi abbiamo dalla storia, sappiamo che il Mediterraneo è stato un crocevia di navigatori fin dall'11.000 a.C., fin dal XII secolo a.C., con traversate che riguardavano l'Anatolia e l'Egitto, oppure la dominazione fenicia in Sicilia nell'VIII secolo a.C. La storia del Mediterraneo si fonde con la storia dei popoli in un tutt'uno, e nonostante vi sia una differenza di lingua e anche di tradizioni culturali, vi è sempre un elemento comune che marca la matrice di un'etnia più ampia, dell'etnia mediterranea, che se non si tratta di un'etnia biologica è certamente un'etnia culturale importante. Ecco, noi riscoprendo quelle radici culturali, radici culturali comuni, ritengo che potremo sempre meglio organizzare i rapporti umani, commerciali, politici, perché uno sviluppo organico di questa diciamo, tendenza culturale, secondo me, facilita molto i rapporti politici e commerciali. Pertanto io mi auguro di avervi tutti ospiti a Capodorlando, nella prestigiosa Villa Piccolo, che ha ospitato i più grandi intellettuali del Novecento, nel nostro meraviglioso parco. Faremo 1, 2, 3 giorni per discutere dei patti di Abramo, ma anche magari per porre qualche pietra in più per poter, diciamo, costruire meglio il futuro di questo Mediterraneo. Grazie.
Grazie, passerei il bastone di comando a Giulio Terzi, che ora distribuisce a fiamma agli altri. A te Giulio, grazie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, President Pruiti, for this very important announcement that you made. It's rejoicing all of us, and I think our distinguished guests, to know that we are in a pattern of consistency with the starting in February of first initiative of the Abraham Peace Accords. And to continue with today's webinar dedicated to space, technologies, and ICT. On the first panel, on the second panel, there will be water, especially in the dimension of a responsible, sustainable development. So thank you very much for this opening, President Benedetto, and for your very kind words to all of us, and especially to Fiamma and myself. And I think we can continue according to the program. The first panel is chaired by Honorable Nierenstein, and she is going to give preliminary remarks and to introduce the participants to the panel. Thank you.
Allora, Giulio, thank you very much. Thank you very much, President Benedetti. And Dr. Pruiti, count me in, as they say in English. Absolutely coming to that marvelous perspective that you gave us for this visit to Sicily, in that incredible place that you mentioned. I'm sure it will be a gorgeous occasion. So I will be part of this. I will be part with a few words of this first panel that is actually chaired by Mrs. Fleur Hassan Nahum, that is the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, a sort of real ambassador to the world, not only of this city that is the center of the world, like some other extremely important city. You can mention Rome, you can mention New York, you can mention London, and together with them you immediately got the name of Jerusalem, that is in the heart and in the mind of every human being that has read and some books, and that knows about what is the main basis of the humankind culture. And I will come back to Fleur and to the other panelists in my group. But first of all, I want to say just 3 words about what Giulio Terzi, Benedetto, and myself, and now I'm so glad to say also that the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, I hope that is in this initiative. The idea is really to be able to export to Europe the concept itself and the future of the Abraham Accords, to export it, because our sensation when we started discussing this series of initiatives was that it has not been yet understood enough. It's a revolutionary meaning. It's really basic, changing pattern, and its ability of putting together the 3 most important monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, not as a matter of chance, has been afterwards re-mentioned more or less with the same word that had been used when the Abraham Accord started by the Pope when he was visiting Iraq very recently. So it's just such a logical and important idea, and we think that it can help a lot in all the concept of stability, of peace, of reciprocal understanding between all the human beings on the planet. So it's extremely important that Europe will get into the frame, will get into the issue, and this issue contemplates a presence in the main field of the human knowledge, human business, human progress. The Abramo Accords are all based on the idea that you can make a big progress around it, and this is what we are going to talk about today. By the way, I also want to mention that as we went on from the first time that we did the panel where all the ambassadors and some experts were present, to this second panel that will be a little more concrete, a little more connected to a specific issue, we want to go on with a dedicated group that will just be formed in these coming days, and that Ambassador Terzi and myself are already working about, together with Dr. Belfer, together with the institutions that we are part of, namely the Foundation Einaudi and the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Several members of that have already been involved in this, and today we will have also here the President Dori Gold and Joseph Cooper-Wassef, which is one of the main brain in our organization, while Dan Diker has already been part of it in the previous panel, and I really hope that there will be a strong collaboration between all of us. Now, I will come afterwards for a second to my other participant in the panel. I wanted just to tell you that in these days, as a matter of chance, while I was reflecting about what I was going to say, I heard on the radio, as a matter of chance, a very interesting reportage of a new alliance between China and India to build a settlement in the moon. This gives an idea. I won't go for sure into it. I'm not able to do it. But my poor knowledge let me nevertheless imagine the immense revolutionary meaning of such a plan. The only thing that appears quite clear is the immensely strategic importance of such a plan for the future itself of the humankind. Strategic, and I don't mean only from the security point of view. When I say strategic, it's clear that any plan connected to our space concerns the future of our planet as far as nature, food, water, climate, and sure, also dominion and influence of each nation are concerned. Ecco, here, now I want to tell you that the space is our subject, and that a new memorandum of understanding, to go immediately with our feet into the question, has been signed just in these days by the Israeli Aerospace Industries and EDGE, the UAE Advanced Technology Group. According to this memorandum of understanding, they will seek to develop advanced CUAS, counter-unmanned aircraft system. The perspective is to create a system that will work for all the MENA, the Middle East and North Africa. This means that there is a large request by the countries in the region and around the world to stop the drone threats. This is just an example of all the things that can be done from the space. It's a quest for peace. Israel has a large experience in anti-drone solution, like the Drone Dome by Rafael Advanced Drone System, because the drone threats are just an example of how the Abramo Accords can serve for peaceful aims. ISIS used the drones in Mosul against the coalition force. The Iran-backed Houthis do. Hezbollah and Hamas have already tried to use them directly against Israel. But Cooper-Wasser will certainly be much more deep into the subject than I am. And this system of defense are not controversial. They are not against human beings. They are just against machine and can jam and engage with lasers. There are so many possibilities. They say that the sky is the limit. but I feel that now it's one of the several ways to implement one of the great innovations of Abramo in his absolutely innovative discovery that there is only one God, invisible, ethic, and that all the men are created in his image. The Abramo Accord, and I am concluding, include immensely new ways of regional cooperation in the sky, in the water, and in the land, and on the land. I will remind only that the conference of February the 4th, together with the Cyprus President Netanyahu, mentioned the UAE desire to join the East Mediterranean Gas Forum. This is an extremely important issue, and we will go back to it when we discuss the land issues, maybe next time when we go into it. And Israel has mentioned in several occasions the interest in the proposed East Med gas pipeline to Europe. At this strategic scale, this decision and project, and we really want to discuss this. The opening of the skies is another extremely important question. Now the Israeli airlines can overfly the Saudi airspace. Now the Moroccan Minister of Tourism, Mrs. Nadia Fettah Alaoui, says that the regular air routes between Morocco and Israel will be established within 3 months. It's an extremely important announcement. And there can be so many other of this kind of progress that will be done in the following months. I'm sure that our panel will go deeper into it, and it will be chaired by, I'm so glad to announce that it will be chaired by Mrs. Fleur Hassan Nahum. She will then describe who are the other panelists, Brigadier General Yossi Cooper-Wasser, that I am honored to be with him in the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs as a senior researchers, and Dr. Mohammed Al Othman. But about Fleur, I want to tell that this is the kind of woman that from the first time you meet her, you really understand how important an ambassador of this kind can be, not only from Jerusalem, but for the peace in the world. She is so much involved in philanthropical and in social tasks. She currently serves as Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem in charge of foreign relations, international economic development and tourism. And she's also the co-founder and founding member of the UAE Israeli Business Council. She served as a senior associate with the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, an international aid organization, and from 2007 as a CEO of the Tikva Children's Home. She is the CEO today and the founder of Message Experts, an international strategic communication firm. So there are so many important things. I can only add maybe one more thing among the hundreds that I could quote. In October 2020, Hassan led the delegation of Israeli officials, business people, and entrepreneurs that visited the 2 Gulf states to pursue cooperation in various areas: technology, business, and tourism. There is no area where Fleur is not involved and is not an expert, and her grace and sympathy and culture makes her the worthiest of all the guests that are all so much, very much welcome by all of us. Please, Fleur.
Emma, thank you so much. You're so kind and generous. Just hearing you speak makes me exhausted. And sometimes you forget how much.
Sorry about that, you know.
No, it makes me exhausted about myself. But thank you so much. It's really wonderful being here. And the work you do with your institution and all the collaborations with this other institution, the work you do within Europe in order to lobby for the Middle East and for the good work that we do in the Middle East is really something that we can't thank you enough for. Fiamma, taking all your political capital, diplomatic capital, and employing it for the good and the coexistence and peace in the Middle East is something very special. Thank you so much. I'm privileged to know you. So I have to say ahead of time that unfortunately my time is going to be a little limited today because we're the day after an election here in Israel, and I committed to being on a couple of TV programs in the next half an hour. So we will try and do as much as possible, and then I leave you in the very capable hands of my friend Fiamma. But I'm very excited by the panel we have today. Yossi Kupawasa, who is the director of Projects Regional Middle East in the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. As we heard, he's also got an illustrious career in the Israeli army. He was brigadier general. He was the defense attaché in Washington. He was the director general of the Ministry of International Affairs and Strategy, and overall a thought leader in the state of Israel and beyond. And also, I'm so pleased to welcome Dr. Mohammed Al Othman, who's from the National Space Agency in Bahrain. Bahrain, of course, the second signatory country of the Abraham Accords, and a country that I feel privileged to have already visited and had the warmest of welcomes. He is a physicist, was the head of the Department of Physics in the University of Bahrain, and today, of course, with the National Space Agency. And I congratulate you, Fiamma, for picking a subject that is extremely relevant, and yet nobody has talked about it yet, really. We've heard about the UAE and their space exploration. We understand Israel's very advanced space technology. It seemed like a very natural, organic subject to unite us, and yet we haven't spoken about. So I'm very pleased that we've picked a subject which really needs to be thrashed out and spoken about. And I guess my first question is for Yosef Kupawasa. We understand the technology that exists in this country and space technology. We also know how keen the Abraham Accords country are to get a foothold into space exploration. Do you believe that the Middle East, starting with the Abraham Accords countries, of course, could become a regional space superpower?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you everybody on the panel for promoting this idea of cooperation between Israel and the region and those security-related issues, okay? Because, of course, this space has many faces. It's not only security. And we cooperate even today with a lot of states around the world, including Italy, on space issues quite a lot. The Italians bought from us a satellite, and we have a joint project that is going to be launched in 2022, next year, of a satellite called Shalom, that's going to be launched next year. And so we are already trained to cooperate with partners around the globe on issues of space and drones. We have sold drones to almost everybody around the globe, and our leadership in drone technology is well known. So yes, we find partners here. I think I'm not sure if this is going to make the difference in the world, but why not? It can be, and if you just believe you can do it, you can make it happen. We have to understand that, everybody's speaking about the Abraham Accords as promoting peace and so on and so forth, which is really important. But in fact, promoting peace also is based on good security. You cannot promote peace just with nice words and nice dreams and visions. You have to be able to defend yourself. And one of the major incentives behind the Abraham Accord, as everybody knows, was the fear of many people that are in the Middle East from the danger coming from Iran, and the need to be more capable to protect ourselves against this danger. And I think that when you look at what the Iranians are using in order to threaten everybody in the region, especially the Gulf area and Saudi Arabia, we saw what they've done to the Saudis. We know that we have to cooperate to be better capable to protect ourselves. And here is Israel with technology and the technology capabilities and all kinds of tools that were developed based on this technology that is ready to share and ready to cooperate in promoting the technological and scientific level of everybody together, and we shall benefit from that as well. And being ready to cooperate in promoting the capabilities to protect ourselves. And you know, we have in space, we already have a lot of military capabilities, military-related capabilities, especially with our we operate right now like 6 or 7 satellites for military purposes that cover the entire region from the point of view of both optical satellites and the SAR radar satellites that enable everybody to see with a very good precision what's going on around us, and we need this information in order to be able to protect ourselves. And we have drones that enables us not only to look more in depth at what we want to look at, but also to be able to take action if we need to against threats that emerge against us. So this cooperation on these levels can contribute a lot and strengthen the camp of the pragmatists, the camp of the moderates, the camp of those who are interested in peace in the face of the people who want to see radicalism, who want to see extremism, want to see wars and tensions. We have to be able to protect ourselves in order to be able to maintain peace. And that's, I think, the most important thing that we have. We have a lot of activity on other aspects of space, like scientific and just in the last couple of months, Israeli universities have sent to the space several small satellites. So it's a lot of stuff going on in this field in Israel, and our capabilities are proven day in, day out all around the world when it comes to having drones that contribute to security or to other purposes, or protecting ourselves against drones, as Fiamma mentioned. That's also something that we develop, and I think it's highly needed in the Gulf states. So it's, I think the cooperation is just natural. And one more thing, because of everything that we were talking about in the previous meeting, because of this people-to-people new peace, it's much easier to cooperate, because we have cooperation, security cooperation with the Egyptians, we have security cooperation with the Jordanians, with whom we have peace for a long time. But I think when it comes from the level of the people, the chances of gaining more ground is much bigger. It's easier to move forward, and you don't have to be shy about it. And this is something that, in my mind, is going to contribute dramatically to the success of this cooperation in the future.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that is the major difference between the Abraham Accords and other peace deals, that this peace, of course, was signed by the leaders, but ultimately is being made every single day by people, be it business, science, technology, arts. We see so many collaborations on a day-to-day level that it gives me a lot of hope that this is a very sustainable, very real and authentic peace. And so we look forward, all of us, to the fruits of that. Dr. Al Othman, about a few weeks ago, we were congratulating our friends in the UAE for their first satellite that they'd sent into space. We know that small countries like Bahrain, UAE, and Israel can have actually a lot of impact and really give the big superpowers a run for their money when it comes to space exploration and science and technology development in that arena. Please tell us a little bit, where is Bahrain in this scenario? What is your space development program looking like?
Yes, thank you. Well, we have just recently started doing, starting with the space sector. We wanted to start first by building the environment, by laying the infrastructure in Bahrain. Basically, we had several challenges. Going to my physics and astronomy background, there is a huge inertia in the system. What's moving will keep on moving, and what's at rest initially, it's hard to set it in motion. And that's one of the things we had. We started once the decree to establish the National Space Science Agency came out. I mean, this is a more of a expected thing. People started making, some of the people, not all of them, making jokes. I mean, first we have to fix whatever here on Earth before going to space. This is really one of the big tasks we have, is awareness. To tell the people that we are going to space, not to do fancy things, not to do academic research, though I'm from academic background, I want to do that, but we are really serving the ground there. What we want to push for the development. Now, instead of hiring 100 inspector going around looking for things here on the ground, with one pass of the satellite, you can tell a lot about what's going on. We did an awareness for the public. We have awareness for the school kids. We believe that those are the future. They have to know that space will have a huge impact on development and on the future. We did awareness on the government sector, telling the people in the government, the decision makers, that things can be done from space much better, much efficient than doing it here on Earth. This is one of the things that we want to do, is to focus that space is a really new frontier. You can do lots of things, new things, and we can do the old things in a much, much better way. Another thing is to establish a capacity building. We want for Bahrainis to start working in this field. We don't want to buy a satellite, just pay the money and everybody else will do that and launch it. No, we want the Bahraini people, Bahraini engineers, Bahraini scientists, we want them to build the satellite. Of course, we won't start from zero. We'll have a partnership, international and regional partnerships. We want our kids to go there, or for the professionals to come to Bahrain and teach us how to do that. To start from zero, the design, decision-making, and so on, until building, testing, and launching, operating the satellite. That's our focus. It's to build capacity, to have indigenous space sector, not an imported technologies, but we really want our guys to do the technology and have our own people familiar with that. We build up on what we already have, for instance, the data analysis, doing remote sensing and GIS, the Geographic Information System. We already have established either in academia or in some sectors of the government. So we want to build up on that. So we already established the lab that's cooperating, augmenting what has already been done. We are now getting space data, space images, trying to establish a space analysis lab. And the way we did it is we don't want to just do things that we like or things we can do. We went to the other government entities. We established the national requirements. What the other government entities have problems, if they are working on space data, we can support that. If they have a problem that we can solve through using the satellite imagery or whatever, we can start that. And we have already done that. We did some like a piloting project saying that we can do these things. For instance, we have a project with agriculture. We have to count the palm trees. It's an issue here in Bahrain. Counting the palm trees, we can determine the health of the palm tree. And that's something basically impossible to do for each individual. You can take sample palm trees and test their health, but doing it for individual palm trees, we can do it from space. That's basically one thing, showing the people that we can do things much better than the typical way. And one of the main things I think is we are working on a national space law. If we want to getting companies to come and invest, to have local investors, people should know their rights, what they can expect, and what things that they have to do. So we are working on we have drafted a space law, and now it's in the regular channels to basically have the infrastructure in place.
That sounds fascinating. And I have to say, I congratulate you for the kind of systemic change you want to make. I do think that education, especially in schools, of what the future can look like is really key in getting people to think towards that. I have to tell you, on a personal note, my daughter was selected to come to Bahrain this summer to do a science exchange with Bahraini kids, 15-year-olds. And I'm so thrilled that this is where we're going. We're doing youth exchanges, we're learning from each other, and we are creating bonds from young children up to adults. And so I hope that my daughter's group get to speak to you, Dr. Al Othman, and the work you're doing in space exploration, because I think it would be fascinating. Yosef, where do you see, I mean, you know, what's really great is that space exploration and science and technology development in this field, you know, is taking kind of defense technology that could be used for disastrous kind of aggressive means, and yet it's pivoting it to something so positive. And I guess that is what our countries, this is what I guess makes us unique, that we want to take all this type of defense technology and use it for the good of mankind, the good of our region, the good of our countries, of course. Where do you see the collaboration between Israel, really on a practical level? How do you see us doing this with the other Abraham Accord signatory countries? Where do you see this taking us? Because Dr. Al Othman mentioned agriculture, which I wouldn't have even thought about. But your specialty, of course, is in defense matters. How do you see it? Paint a picture for us, please.
Well, first of all, space can help us on a variety of issues and almost everything. And as Dr. Mohammed said, I think he just mentioned one case of the palm trees, which is critical. I remember me doing research on the growth of plants that are used for producing narcotics in Lebanon several years ago, in order to find out what should be done about this criminal activity in our neighboring country. That is also something that can be done, and the capability to differentiate between the lengths of waves of different green light is making a difference. Even that can be done from space. But actually, everything can be done, and it's very important to know what are the issues that bother other members of our region, so we can make sure that we pay attention to that and make the necessary adjustments. Because first of all, let's not be too shy about saying defense is also something legitimate. You have to defend yourself. It's not.
Absolutely.
It may be used for destruction. It may be used for deterrence. And for protection, and we do that. And look, I'm coming back to that case. If you want to be able to protect yourself, you got to be able to get some knowledge from somebody who's been experienced with that for so long as we are. So we are here to share this experience with our friends in the Middle East, facing the same enemy. But that said, listening to Dr. Mohammed, I was really thrilled, because all those things that he was speaking about are things that, since we started with our space program in the 80s, we've been there. And it's so natural for us to share this information and this experience, not necessarily on security matters, but on all fields with you. You know, all these issues that you mentioned about education. We have our children are already busy building satellites, you know. So when they reach the university, they've already had some experience with that. They don't start to first touch something that is relevant at the university or at a company that produces satellites or capabilities to launch them. So it's, yes, we have to start very early. Today, life is so short, you don't have time.
Absolutely.
You have to
absolutely.
start really early, and the children today are much more capable than we were when we were young. Unfortunately, we have to admit this sad truth. So it's
I totally agree.
So here's a great opportunity. They deal with technology in a very savvy manner, and that they don't have any fears from technology. So it's a great opportunity that we can cooperate on that, and we can cooperate on research, and we can cooperate on joint projects in space that, as I told you before, we send satellites all the time for scientific research. If we can know what are the things that bother Bahrain or the UAE, and adjust our satellites to things that are of concern for our partners, we would be more than happy to do that and do it together.
That sounds really wonderful.
As you said, you want to be a part of it. You don't want to just take the fruits. You want to be involved in making it. That's, let's do it. It's,
I agree. I think maybe from this discussion, before I leave, I'm so sorry that I have to go, but maybe from this discussion, we can take it offline, Dr. Mohammed, and think about creating a Abraham Accords task force on space exploration.
I don't know if you had the chance already to speak with our head of the space agency.
No, but I think that we should create a task force.
I'll put you in touch. It's everything you said is like, oh, sure.
Great.
It's a great opportunity for everybody.
Thank you.
And I want to say one more thing about it.
Yes.
We are talking now about Bahrain and UAE, but we all hope that more countries will join in.
Absolutely, the more the merrier.
And I repeatedly say when I'm speaking about the Abraham Accords, that the burden, the proof of the burden is on us. If we prove that these accords are for the benefit of the well-being of the peoples, both the Israeli and the Bahraini and the Emirati and all the peoples of the Middle East, more and more countries will look at it and say, hey, we want to share with that in that as well. And so let's together prove to everybody that this was such a good idea to go in this direction.
So I have a question to both of you about that. First of all, it's a question relating to our activities, okay? We are here to interest Europe on the subject. What do you think when we speak about the space subject that could be of particular interest for Europe? Because up to now, I would like to have a specific answer from both of you. This is one question. And the second question of mine is there a political situation that could stop the Abraham Accords? Because the Abraham Accords, a way or another, however, whatever you might think about that part of history, were born in a specific moment by specific people. Kushner made a lot of work about it, was traveling from one place to the other, gave a lot of plans. Do you think that there could be a situation where this trend could find some obstacles in the new situation? Both of these questions, please, who wants to answer the first? Professor Al Othman, first of you.
Well, I mean, this is like the politics. I have no clue about the politics. I'm purely from academic. I was in a shell of academia and recently went to NSCC and I had to deal with all the stuff. So probably anybody here in the panel is more experienced than me. What we want from Europe, I mean, ESA is a huge. I mean, you compare it to NASA and Roscosmos, and we are just kids. You know, like a kid, it's like a sponge. We want to get, anything we can get our hands on. Of course, giving the limits, we are not like the UAE with the huge budget. We are trying to capitalize on whatever we have. We are really ahead in the part of the data analysis. So we want to capitalize on that and start working on developing our experience, our skills in that field. But we don't want to forget about all the other things. It's a whole complete system. It's an integrated system. We want to know about each part or each component of this system and build up on that thing that that can really excel on. As General Yusuf said, this is really maybe when Israel was in the 80s, this is our situation right now. We can do everything from space, but we need to develop the people. We know that the people, and we know we have to let the government, hey, government, we can do these things, give us budget, give us personnel, give us equipment, give us, let our hand be a little bit free that we can do, and we can produce lots of good work.
I would say regarding Europe, that those joint projects that we have with European countries and with the USA should be opened also to partners of the Abramo Accords, because it's in the interest of Europe to make sure that I don't think that there is a much chance that this is going to stop, but just to make sure that these chances are even smaller, and this is, in my mind, should be the interest of Europe. The Europeans should contribute and get involved in these activities as well, to make sure to everybody that this is really the right path to choose. And I think this is something that Europe can and should do. And Europe is cooperating with Israel on space and on technologies and on security matters all the time, because they know that it's beneficial for Europe anyhow. So this is why they do it. And in spite of political disagreements, the cooperation on technology and science is flourishing anyhow. And I can tell you, I'm involved in all kinds of joint technological projects between us and Europe, and in which we get involved with a lot of other countries. It's not only Israel, Europe. Many countries get involved. It's international projects. I think there is room there for Bahrain, for the UAE, maybe in the future Sudan and Morocco as well to join in. And this is something that the Europeans, through which, can contribute to improvement. Now, basically about this issue of whether it can be stopped, I mean, Kushner didn't invent it. If it was not out there to be picked, it wouldn't have happened. It was not that something he created. And I was convinced for a long time that this is possible, and it's the right thing to do. And I'm so happy that it happened and that Kushner took advantage of the opportunity. But now the opportunity is less important. What's important is what the content we put in it. That's the important thing. If we prove that this is good for everybody, everybody will like it. And I think for the time being, what I see is very positive. And but it's like marriage; you have to invest all the time. It's you can't become complacent ever. So it's that's what we have to do, and we have to be able to prove every day that it was a good move that we have done. Until you can really get cruise control, and you don't care what happened yesterday. But we are not there yet, and we have to invest. And I believe that the future is bright for this cooperation with Bahrain and these specific issues and other issues as well, because it's more than just interest. It's interest, but it's more than just interest. And then the warmth is reflecting the fact that it's more than just interest for everybody.
Great. Now I think we are just approaching the end of this panel, going to the second, and I would like to, Professor Al Othman, but I would like to, my sensation is that when you speak about what's going on, you just talk about it, also Yossi, as if it was totally natural, as if it were there all the time, as it always happened. And I'm sure that it had to happen all the time, but it didn't. I mean, then something new has, and I would like to know from you, Professor Al Othman, how do you feel this new? Is there something new in the perception of the Middle East, or it's just all connected to what you were talking about before, the progress of the young minds in your country, the necessity of making them grow in a scientific field and whatsoever? Or there is also this international sensation of, finding a language also with people that you were never been talking with for so many years. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's really a natural thing. I mean, the world is moving in a different direction than when we used to be kids. Either you have to adapt or you have to get out of the game. It's in every aspect. I mean, even in the music, my kids are listening to music I cannot listen to. I'm used to other type of music. This is just the natural progressing of life. Either try to adapt, get on board, or you will be left behind. This is the natural thing. And of course, this is the globalization. As everybody here knows that my kid just she bought a couple of socks from, I don't know, Korea or something like that. This is globalization. You have to talk to everybody now, or you'll be left alone in a dark corner by yourself. This is the natural way that things are happening now.
I very much identify with the music example that you do, you know, totally having two children, one big and one small. I totally identify. In both cases, I identify with you. So one last very, very brief question for both of you. Which is the most important project with the air that you consider today to be on top of the aspiration? Yossi, you of Israel and you of Bahrain and the Emirates, please. The most important project.
I think it's too early to say what's the most important project. It's too short of a time has passed so far to say. We are exploring this. We have to discuss it. We have to learn better the needs of each other so that we should be able to really focus on a specific project. But you know, there's going to be, for example, ISDEF, the Israel Defense conference, a big Israel Defense Conference is going to be held in the UAE in the coming next month, as a matter of fact. And we shall be in Expo, and all these things will help us focus on a specific project. Our technologies are open for cooperation on a wide variety of issues, not only space and drones, but also on cyber and countering or cybersecurity and things like that. A lot of technological opportunities. I'll be delighted if the next project will be, as mentioned before, the next panel on water cooperation. That would be for me just as good as if it was on cyber, which I know more about, or other security matters. I wouldn't mind. I'm looking forward. Really, the sky is not even the sky is the limit.
The sky is not the limit, Professor.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, in our case, even here in Bahrain, with a small country, we didn't know it's really important to start with. We have to do the survey, we have to have all our meetings with the different government entities, and then identify the really important thing that we should start on, and the resources that we have that we can produce a quick results, and that I think it's in the exploration stage right now.
But if we have a joint spacecraft reaching the moon, with the flags of Israel and Bahrain and the UAE together, I would be thrilled.
Oh, that's you know, I take it as a symbol. I take it as a symbol of our conversation. And then I invite you now to join the next panel, and for the future to join this group that we will form. We will form a group to keep discussing the issue, and we project to be in touch with the European Union about that. This is what we want to do. Okay, so please, Ambassador Giulio Terzi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fram. Thank you very much for concluding this first panel of extraordinary interest, in my opinion, and I think from the remarks that I'm reading already privately on my WhatsApp and the chat line, I see how interest it has raised this discussion on space, and especially the opening up of opportunities, huge opportunities, which exist in this area, both from the scientific to the practical applications of all technology and space. But we will come back while concluding these two panels discussion. But let me say right away that I was very much impressed by the idea of creating even a task force on space, so that we could, but everyone who has a title in a think tank or an institutional role, to bring these huge opportunities, vast opportunities of cooperation, to bring them as a group of Abraham Peace Accord countries, to bring them in the heart of the European Union institutions. And that is something that could be a task of every one of us, for every one of us, in trying to follow up to this fascinating discussion that it was open today. Talking Now I have the honor and pleasure to introduce panel 2, Sustainable Development and Water. Is a panel which is going to be chaired by Professor Alessandro Leito, Director of the Water Academy. He has a very distinguished panelist, His Excellency Ambassador Dor Gold, President of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, Dr. Hassan Al-Baflaza of the University of Bahrain, Professor Dr. Susanna El Massa, Zayed University of the United Arab Emirates. I would like to really thank the participants to this panel because this is a panel which is focused on a very critical area, which is the area of that we can define as responsible, sustainable development enhanced by the Abramo Accords peace agreement. And there are, I'm adding responsible because there is no real sustainable development is the concept of responsibility, accountability, both from governments and companies, researchers, businessmen is involved. And I believe that there are 3 pillars among the many new opportunities opened by the Abramo Accords peace agreement, which pertain to the realm of a responsible sustainable development. Because this area, this realm, has been significantly enhanced now against the background of a renewed commitment to peace, prosperity, friendly relations, and cooperations. And these 3 pillars are, first of all, the environment, including biodiversity conservation and climate change mitigation. Second, agriculture and food security through new collaborations in sharing and developing knowledge, technology, and innovation. And third, water, especially water treatment, water management, water security, and water efficiency. Although each one of these 3 areas of cooperation need an integrated and specific approach, nothing like the issue of water resources requires the highest priority. It can be easily said that water is the overarching issue for a responsible sustainable development. And as I said, responsible because aimed at peace, cooperation, human progress in the framework of the Abramo Accords peace agreement. And I would like now to really give the floor to Professor Alessandro Leito, whom I thank again for having accepted to chair this panel, for being a usual and very welcome participant to the important activity of the Fondazione Einaudi and other think tanks with which we cooperate, especially the Water Academy that he chairs. Professor Alessandro Leito is a geographer, journalist, and documentary film director. He's considered among the most brilliant and successful analysts in the field of study of sustainability at the international level. He's a university professor and conceived in 2005 the concept of sustainable, responsible development. That's why I'm underlining. I've always been, for years, very much impressed by this redefinition of development, to which he gave so much force and contribution. Professor Leito is currently investigating the advantages to adopt resilience principles in order to efficiently tackle the great challenge that humanity will face in the near future when dealing with nature's major changes. He has developed a specific competence in geopolitics and natural resources. He has written many scientific publications. As I said, he's founder and director of Water Academy 5 years ago. And is currently director of the first level master on water awareness, consciousness, knowledge, and management. It's a long list of accomplishments that I could continue on, but please, we will listen from his voice important considerations about today's topic. Thank you, Professor Leito. You have the floor.
So thank you so much, dear Giulio. It is not so easy for us, both of us, you and I, to let our mind land on planet Earth after such an exciting discussion on space. But let's try. So I wish to associate myself to your thanks and greetings to the President of Fondazione Luigi Einaudi, Giuseppe Benedetto, who is a great esteemed friend, to President Pruiti di Ciarello, to Honorable Fiamma Nierenstein, mainly to you, because you are a tireless and inspired conceiver of so many initiatives and events, always at the highest level, and to the staff and members of the Fondazione Luigi Einaudi and of the partners that co-organized today's conference, and to the patient and highly qualified public that is still listening to us in a good number. So this is encouraging. I wish to share with you, before to leave the floor to the protagonists of the panel that are extremely highly qualified, I wish to share with you, I was saying, my modest and humble opinion and point of view on this historical process by trying to share with you also two extraordinary words that are shalom and salam to you all. These are two different words, but so similar phonetically, that refer to two different ways to salute and wish peace. And what a joy it is for me to express this antique salute in two languages of common Semitic origin and address it to different communities that sits with such a common willing around the same table. Thanks to your example, we can say that today there is no distance anymore between salam and shalom. And at least this is the feeling, the perception of so many people around the world that looks at the Abraham Accord with hope. But what does the Abraham Accord means, at least to the people like me? How can we intend it and try to interpret its real means and consequences, its perspectives and its potential and extraordinary impact on the entire humanity? Abraham, the first Hebrew patriarch, revered too by the two other monotheistic religions born in that same area, Christianity and Islam, accordingly to the biblical book of Genesis, again a common heritage, left Ur in Mesopotamia because God called him to establish a new nation in a faraway land that later was named as Canaan. He is a shared patriarch by both Judaism and Islam and by Christianity too as well. Really, no other name would be able to suit better than Abraham to baptize this historical agreement that in the language of diplomacy, it is technically defined as a treaty of peace, diplomatic relations, and full normalization. This is not only an incredible, in the real meaning of the term, achievement and diplomatic success, just even unthinkable few months before its finalization. It is not only an historical conquest. It represents an authentic cultural watershed. It is enough to think that the word water is cited 722 times in the Holy Book of Bible, mainly in the Old Testament, so commonly dear to the three monotheistic religions. This accord, it is not simply the heart launched beyond the obstacle. It is more bravely the brain and the soul that march together toward the future that will be commonly chosen and shaped. Abraham, then, the name is self-sufficient to let all of us think that he is seen as a common paternal figure. It means that we can consider each other of us as members of the same large and bit noisy indeed, because the influence of Mediterranean is clear in all of us, a large family. And if we agree on this point, well, again, beside the father, we need a mother, but we do not have to look for another religious or mythological figure. We can simply refer to the mother of life, a common mother well beyond us as Christians, Muslims, Jews, Yazid, Mandeans, and so on. The mother of all humanity that is sacredly celebrated and that carry on its biological role as the source of life on the entire planet. This mother is water. If water has a special meaning all over the world, well, we can say that in the specific territorial geopolitical quadrant we are talking about, mainly so hot and tendentially arid, if not desertic, water has an extraordinary means. It is widely clear then that it will play, especially there, a role of paramount importance, since it is recognized and daily reminded by so many in the world that there would be no progress, stability, economic growth, social improvement, sustainable and responsible development, if not in presence of an authentic shared effort toward a common vision on the use, not neither the misuse nor the abuse of water resources. This common goal was very difficult so far by itself due to the scarcity of the source of life in that area. But now the challenge becomes more and more difficult due to the dramatic consequences of the climate changes. Almost all water basins there are gradually and inexorably decreasing their range, their flow, and the perspective of their respective state of health is not encouraging neither. It would be a sign of ignorance and a proof of arrogance too from all of us, just even to try to tell Israelis how to improve their technological knowledge and use of water. In this, they are by far the best in the world. As well as it would be a proof of omniscience, even to try to suggest Arabs, proud descendants of Bedouins' traditions in dealing with water scarcity, how to behave and respect water. It is on the contrary, and this is very important, by recognizing both of them, their extraordinary knowledge on all water-related aspects, that we all in the rest of the world, we do expect from them to share their achievements with those other communities globally that are daily living a precarious relation with the source of life, because the struggle against water scarcity will be the most important in the very near future for all of us. And we badly need in the world the teach and the knowledge from the partners of the Abraham Accords states. If and when we will be able to recognize the importance of an ethical approach to water and on the basis of the principle of sustainable and responsible development that the Ambassador Terzi so kindly reminds, well, we'll be contextually able to face the breathtaking challenges humanity will have in front soon. Climate changes, demographic increase, food and water security, oceans conditions, pollution, ice melting, sea level increase, and more. Humanity can profoundly benefit from the merge of knowledge and empiric experiences, research and commitments that will result as an outcome from the Abraham Accords, in general and in particular on water, especially if we think to the special significance it would have a possible, I just launched the proposal, Abraham Agreement on water-related issues, launched by those lands that, accordingly to the biblical sources, 4,000 years ago, circa, saw the first dispute on a dwell in Beersheba, and that today deeply ground its peace and prosperity process right on water. We can show to the world that today more are the things that unite us there than the ones that divide us apart. So having Abraham as a common father and considering water as our common mother, with this hope we all look with the greatest favor to the deepest and fastest implementation of the Abraham Accords, blessed and baptized in and by water, as we saw. I do hope you kindly forgive my approach, typical of an old scholar and researcher. This interdisciplinary excursus, probably tedious, but sincerely passionate, since to the cause of water and its related issues, I simply devoted almost all my entire career and the vast portion of my own life. But as many others in the world, I strongly believe that what is clearly recalling the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, there would be no at any possible human development without an equal access to safe water. In conclusion, the Abraham Accord, as they are seen from Europe and beyond, represents also an extraordinary occasion to spread, diffuse, and root a new culture of water that we, in Water Academy for the Sustainable and Responsible Development clearly expressed with the sincere aim to share it globally by means of the Geneva Water Initiative we proudly launched in 2016. So thank you so much. And now I have the privilege to leave the floor to the real protagonist of this panel that are extraordinary persons, Doregold, Hanan Al-Bouflaza, and Susanna El-Massa. Starting from His Excellency the Ambassador Doregold, I would like to say, who doesn't know him? In the world of diplomacy and in the world of complexity, he is one of the symbols of tenacity and capacity to reach the goal. He is currently the president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. He has been 11th permanent representative of Israel to the United Nations. He has been also Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He has been a special envoy for international issues by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Far East and in Africa to the Palestinian Authority, Egypt, Jordan, and Gulf states. He has written books on the Middle East and articles which have appeared in major international publications. He delivered a testimony at the US House of Representatives, and he did a lot of things more that I cannot read unless you don't want me to impede him to talk, because his biography is extremely long. So, Ambassador Gold, the floor is yours, please.
Well, thank you very much. And I have a special thanks to state to the Luigi Einaudi Foundation, to Fiamma Nierenstein, and of course to Ambassador Tirzi, who it's always a pleasure to appear with. We have a great deal of common ground to cover, and I hope this panel will contribute to that. Years ago, during the British Mandate, there were those who looked at the amount of water resources that existed in the area of what is today Gaza, Israel, the West Bank, and Jordan, and they estimated that maybe 2 million people could live off those water sources. Well, today, if you combine all the areas, we have close to 12 million people. And the state of Israel has managed, with water technology development, has managed to not only provide water for its population, but it is managing to export water. It is also managing to export water technology. And as Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was always involved with those efforts, particularly in Africa, because we, under Prime Minister Netanyahu, decided we have to return to Africa and try and build up the relations we once had there. There are many obstacles, but water certainly is an area that everybody needs cooperation on. One of our breakthroughs diplomatically was in the area of the Sahel. I remember saying to my staff in the foreign ministry, let's take a strip of land beginning on the Atlantic coast with some of the states there, like Guinea, Conakry, and draw a line directly to the Sudanese border. Those are countries where we don't have diplomatic relations, but they're interested in cooperating with us. They're interested in expanding their contacts with Israel and receiving water technology. I'm talking about countries like Mali, Niger, etc. And it's very hard to do when, of course, radical Islamists are rushing through the area, taking it over, especially in an area known as the area of Lake Chad, which is drying up. And this is exactly where many ISIS-related organizations have grown. I was also made aware when I looked at this area of the problem our European friends are facing. And that is, of course, so many Africans who come from this area are trying to escape it and cross the Mediterranean into Italy and into the rest of Europe. And of course, if we had water.
Adesso lo sento, adesso lo sento. Okay.
Pardon? Do you hear me?
Aspetta.
Sì.
I'm not touching anything. I'm just trying to speak. Should I continue?
Yes, please, Ambassador, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say is here, the decline of water resources feeds into the decline of agriculture, which feeds into the fact that much of this area becomes unsustainable. It feeds into the growth of jihadi organizations across this region, which of course will affect Israeli security, but for the most part, it's going to affect European security. And therefore, handling this issue, getting a handle on it, becomes so critical for all of us. Now, the UAE and Bahrain are a little bit far away from Lake Chad. But that doesn't mean that this is not an interest of theirs, because I have seen, for example, the UAE become particularly active in Africa and in areas not far from here. The whole struggle over Libya has an element which is closely tied in with UAE's foreign policy in Africa. So what I'm trying to say is that these areas are areas that we have to protect, we have to develop, and we have to do what's necessary to see if we can expand water resources. And the fact is that Israel, with its technology, has been able to provide water originally conceived, is a source of hope that, again, this can be addressed. Now, there are two bodies of water that are affected by international issues that are relatively closer to us. One, of course, is the Dead Sea, where we have been seeking to work out arrangements with our Jordanian neighbors to provide more water, either from the Mediterranean or from the Red Sea. We have believed that the taking water out of the Mediterranean and moving it by pipeline towards the Dead Sea is the more economical and the smarter approach to take. Some of our friends in Jordan have focused on the Red Sea route, perhaps seeing an opportunity for sustained development there. We can work out our differences, but they show the fact that a declining body of water, the Dead Sea, which is dropping, some people say, a meter every year, it's an urgent matter, and it's related to water. The other issue, which of course is in the headlines in Europe, in Africa, less so in Israel, but it should be, is what is happening in the Nile Basin. As most of you know, there is a struggle underway between Ethiopia, which is building the Grand Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile, and Egypt, which views the sources of Nile water as a national security interest. And, you know, in the past, in the days of Nasserist Egypt, the old ideologues of the Egyptian foreign ministry used to like to accuse Israel of working with the Ethiopians to extract or take away Egyptian water. We, of course, were never involved in such plots, but it made good copy for Egyptian newspapers in the 1960s. Today, we have a real immediate problem because I think in the next 7 years, the Grand Renaissance Dam will be filled, and the amount of water that Sudan and Egypt can take from the Nile will be reduced. And what do we do about it? I think we, although it's not our struggle, have an interest in seeing stability in this area. And therefore, if Europe could work with the United States and with others to make sure that Egypt doesn't suffer from the completion of this dam by the Ethiopians, that would be a very smart move in terms of regional stability, not just in that quadrant of Africa, but across the Middle East. And so that is something which we have an interest in. It's important, and it relates directly to the issue of water, which is a subject of our webinar. So let me just summarize at this point and say that water back in the 1930s was being seen as a challenge for the growth of the Middle East region. And today it certainly still is. But today we have technologies which have proven our collective ability to surmount the problem. It's political will that's the main thing that has perhaps forestalled reaching solutions. And here, to the extent that Europe can help us depoliticize water and come to put forward real solutions that are technologically feasible, Europe can make a big difference in an area which is close to its southern flank. Thank you, and thank you for holding this seminar.
Oh, Ambassador, I'm considered an expert in geopolitics of natural resources with a focus on water. Now I have to resign after your lesson because really you have been in so few minutes so able to sum up together historical data like the basin of reference of the Palestine, if you allow me to call me like this, during the British Mandate with 2 million people, inhabitants almost, that was insisting on that water basin, while today in the same area are insisting 12 million people and in the presence of a decreased flow of water, and associating this in terms of sum up, as I've said, to your clear and light and very precise, let me say, analysis on what is going on between Egypt and Ethiopia all along the River Nile. It is really a great lesson of geopolitics of natural resources. So congratulations, and I hope we will have time again together with Ambassador Terzi to save some time for an additional question later. Now, following the program, I wish to leave the floor to Dr. Hanan Abuflaga, which is a personality in her country. She is from University of Bahrain. She's a representative for the GCC countries in terms of Technical Standard Committee on Renewable Energy and Energy Storage System. And above all, she is the principal, amid other things indeed, she's the principal investigator of the UK Gulf Institutional Grant with a prestigious UK university, as well as a principal investigator for 3 other important projects based in the University of Bahrain. Let me tell you, Dr. Al-Buflaza, that leaving you the floor, I take the occasion to recall to my mind the wonderful years I lived with my family there in Bahrain. I lived there 2 years, and 2 years I lived in Abu Dhabi, and that is the occasion I had so many years ago to discover the importance and the beauty of that area in the Gulf country community area. So, Dr. Al-Buflaza, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's my pleasure to be part of this very, very important event. And I would like to thank the first speakers and the panelists all actually joining this event. If you allow me, since you have been in Bahrain, I don't know if you understand or you know exactly why Bahrain has been called Bahrain, because Bahrain in English means two seas. And the reason that we are actually two seas is simply because this country used to have a lot of water, natural resources in terms of natural springs. And even though we have all like an island surrounded by seawater, but still even the fresh water was actually pumping out from the sea, the seabed. So, and this has helped even the pearl industry in the country. But unfortunately, with all what has happened recently with the global warming and the change in climate, we have lost all that. So we're left with one sea, unfortunately, at the moment, but we still keep the one in Bahrain. So we definitely look as, I come from the academia, of course, and I'll be honest with you, that was the first I have heard about the accords. I was like, oh, wow, that's good, because definitely now we have no boundaries. All the boundaries are now disappeared, because we can, as a researchers, now go and explore. More work is happening, especially in the area of water with Israel. Of course, as you know, that the region, I will focus on what we have as a water security in the region, is that we don't have water, as simple as that. And that we have to depend heavily on the energy production in the country, in the area, in order to have water. And that has, and is still is putting a lot of stress, both in terms of the resources that we have, and also in terms of the impact on the environment, which is something that we have to look at and think of very seriously, actually, in the coming years. Of course, that makes our desalination, of course, the source that we live with. And without desalination, we cannot have clean water in these areas. And if you, I'm sure you are aware that most of the systems that we are using at the moment is the thermal desalination in the area. We have also RO systems, and Israel, we have a great research in this area. And I think this will help us to explore more, to engage in more research regarding the work that it's actually could improve the technology itself and make it more adaptable to the area. The challenges, even with the current desalination systems, everyone knows about it. That should be definitely something that we could explore more. One of the things also that we can think about as a way of collaboration also, and things that we can do together, is that looking at renewing the resources of water. We have in our history, plus beside that we are called Bahrain, is that actually we have underground channels, and these are historical channels. Most of people, even people living in Bahrain, they don't know. I don't know if Dr. Mohammed Al Othman knows about that. So we can check this. So these underground channels, historical channels, people used to preserve and actually store water under in there. Hence, we have all this greenery. Before, of course, not at the moment. We have lost huge parts of our greenery because of lack of water. So how we can bring this back, how we can bring our country to be green again, with actually even trying to bring back the natural springs that we used to have. And if I will say, these are not something that has disappeared like 100 or 150 years ago. It is actually something that has disappeared in my age. During my age, when I was a kid, I used to see all the natural springs. And now, if I will ask any kids now, they don't know what I'm talking about. So you can see that it's not really been far away. We have managed to lose most of the water now. So I still, I think this is a good news for me. I'm so happy as myself, as I do a lot of research, especially which is related to desalination and to renewable energy, combining renewable energy with desalination, which I think there is going to be a huge opportunity of actually doing a joint research with that. If you allow me, I will take the question that has been raised in the first panel, regarding how can this event bring Europe into the picture, we have, as the University of Bahrain now, managed for the first time to be part of the Horizon 2020. And I'm sure those who have applied for the grants, the European grants, they know Horizon 2020, which focuses on desalination in the region, plus, of course, clean energy. This will even now, before, be very honest, before we have lines, we have to make sure who we are collaborating with. And now it's not going to have this, lines, and then we can have the science and technology go beyond all the political issues. Because for me as a scientist, I don't see this. I see articles, I see publication, I see innovation, I see industry. That's what I see. I don't see other things which related to politics. The mic is off.
Excuse me. I do apologize. Now, here we are. Sorry. Thank you very much, because your excursus have been really historical on one side and very technical and in advanced future on the other side. You recall the importance to secure those ancient habits that the people of antiquity in our lands, doesn't matter which land, was used to adopt in order to save water. The idea of the channel is extraordinary, because it is quite well shared all along the Mediterranean. So under the cultural point of view, if it is possible for me, which I'm just a humble and modest professor, I wish to encourage your authorities there, your institution, to revitalize and reconquer to the common people this habit, because it is very important. And then it is very important as well to share together maybe with some Israeli university the opportunity to do something important on Horizon 2020 programs, because we really can make the difference for the benefit of humanity, of the entire humanity all over, if we will be able to join our effort in technical research, since, as I said, all the rest of the world just has to learn from the experience in dealing with water scarcity from Israel and the Arab world. We are, let me say, just pupils at the primary school compared to you all when dealing with this. And this is a great problem that all humanity is going to face soon. So I strongly hope that, again, Ambassador Terzi will save some time for a second round of questions to you again, and all my love to Bahrain that I strongly hope to visit again. Now it is the time to listen Professor Dr. Susanna El-Massakh, who too, she has a great responsibility in our panel, since she represents the vision from the Zayed University in the United Arab Emirates. She has a great biography, and like me, if you allow me to compare myself to you, indeed, dear Susanna, we have, let me say, a common passion for the interdisciplinary approach that we think that with regards to water is probably very useful. So she has done research in the areas of economics, finance, sustainable development, economics of education, and behavioral economics. Susanna also, she published several scholarly papers, and this is important because publishing is a duty for us, that we do research as scholars and researchers, because, let me say, out of the blue, we have to get out from our ivory towers and be in constant and deep contact with the civil society. Professor Dr. Susanna El-Massakh, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I would like to share my presentation, if you allow me. And I will act a bit academic. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this great event. And also I would like to thank Professor Leto for the introduction. Dear distinguished guests, it's a pleasure to be here today to present this topic about water and sustainable development in the UAE. In this presentation, I will take you to look at the UAE in a glance, and then the relation between water and sustainable development in the UAE. I will shed some light about supply and demand and the gap within the water market in the UAE, the challenges and the water energy food nexus in the UAE, the management of these challenges by the UAE and the opportunities in the UAE water market given the recent Abraham Accord treaty or agreement. The United Arab Emirates, as you can see here from this map, is consisting of 7 emirates. The 7 emirates were united in 1971 under one country. The country is 83,600 kilometers square, and the capital is Abu Dhabi, and it dominates 87% of the mainland area. The climate is desert, cooler in eastern mountains. The main natural resources, petroleum and natural gas. The population is around 11 million and mostly expats. The GDP per capita is around $43,000 in nominal terms. If we look at the countries that are most at risk from water crisis, you can see from the list. We can see Israel and we can see also the UAE. 17 countries, mostly in the Middle East, are at risk. And the map shows from low to extremely risk countries. One day, water might become more expensive than oil. And this is something all the countries should be prepared with policies and be resilient to the risks that are coming. And actually, water is very related to sustainable development. And me coming from the academia, I'm originally an economist and with more than 20 years in academia, but I have this passion of sustainable development and multidisciplinary. And when the Sustainable Development Goals came out by the UN in 2015, this is when everything came together. This all multidisciplinary vision of development for this generation and the coming generation and the multi-dimension of people's life and well-being came together by presenting these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals are very related to the water sector, either directly or indirectly. If you can see here, there is one core goal, which is related to the water, goal number 6, clean water and sanitation, but all other goals are somehow related to the water companies, directly or indirectly. And if we look at the current agreement between the 3 countries, we can look deeply in goal number 17, partnerships for the goals. So this is actually the accord, the Abraham Accord is a clear application of one of the Sustainable Development Goals. Clean water and sanitation specifically, the goal number 6, as you can see, consists of 6 main sub-indicators and 2 other indicators related to local participation and international cooperation. Safe drinking water for all, sanitation for all, better water quality, more efficient water use, integrated water management, healthier ecosystems. These are the sub-goals that each country signed the SDGs in 2015. Israel was one country, UAE is also another country. Both of them signed the the UN Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, and both countries submitted the VNRs, the voluntary national reviews, to the UN in 2018. So there is a commitment. There are goals to be achieved by 2030. And also, again, the clean water and sanitation sustainable development goals, as you can see from this pie diagram, is very related in different layers with poverty, with hunger, with good health, with sustainable cities and communities, and everything. If we look at the UAE SDG 6 in a snapshot, we can see actually the UAE has several excellent water indicators. According to the 2016 Sustainable Cities Index, Abu Dhabi and Dubai are the top-ranked Middle Eastern cities in the provision of high standards of water and sanitation network. Access rates to an improved drinking water source is 100%. So all the people are drinking clean water, and sanitation is 96%. Safe treatment of household wastewater is 99%, being among the highest in the world, and the degree of implementation of IWRM being quite advanced at 75%. Where is the problem? The UAE shows a particularly concerning development in the area of water stress. It's 1,708% of renewable resources withdrawn, which is the second highest rate in the region, leading to rapidly decreasing water use efficiency. There is low efficiency monitored in the water sector. If we look at mapping the SDGs to the UAE national agenda, it comes as one of the top 3 priorities in the UAE, as shown in the Vision 2021. When I looked at the water market in the UAE, I looked at 3 dimensions: and the water demand side, water supply side, and also the gap. This pie chart shows that private household actually demands the 24% of the total water demand. Agriculture takes about 2/3 of the total water consumption in the United Arab Emirates, and the industry takes 9%. UAE is one of the largest consumers of water per capita globally, and one of the most water scarce countries in the world, as shown by the risk. The bottled water consumption is 285 per liter per year per capita. And this is #1 water consumption in the world. So there is a problem. And some projections have been done in research showing until 2030 and 2050 that the demand is getting higher and higher over time, and this will make more pressure on the scarcity, mainly coming from the demand from the household sector. When we look at the water supply, the water resources in the UAE is divided into the conventional and non-conventional sources of water. Mainly the surface water as conventional, and the groundwater. And the non-conventional sources of water are treated wastewater and cloud seeding. I will talk a bit about the conventional and also the non-conventional. The non-conventional, actually, the rainfall in the UAE is scarce, combined with a high rate of evaporation due to the UAE's location in the dry belt region. Rainfall is limited. And when we look to the non-conventional, the UAE research program for rain enhancement science was launched in 1990, and artificial rain in the UAE has helped the country a lot in relation to the extreme temperature, weather, and create also favorable environmental condition for all. Of course, there are always ways to secure other tangible water sources, desalination plants being the most viable ones in the UAE. However, if we compare the cost of desalination with the cloud seeding in the UAE, the costs are far less than desalination. 1 cubic meter of water extracted via cloud seeding costs around 4 dirhams, while a desalination of the same amount costs around 220 dirhams. So can you imagine the relative cost? Given the overall cloud seeding impact on the UAE, the country is always in search for new and efficient technologies to create rain. Recently, nanotechnology have been used with artificial intelligence for cloud seeding, and this is a great method applied recently in the UAE. For the conventional water sources, the surface water, the UAE doesn't share any surface water and does not have any water agreement or treaties with any other country related to the surface water. In regard to the groundwater, GCC countries, UAE is one of the GCC countries, they share underground aquifers, but currently there are no single treaty or agreement on how to govern these aquifers. Now, what are the challenges? What are the challenges that the water market in the UAE faces? High demand of water, given the scarcity, depletion of groundwater reserves, high cost of producing drinking water, limited utilization of available treated wastewater, limited collection and treatment of wastewater outside the urban areas, high water losses, water distribution network, and low irrigation efficiency. The whole water system actually lacks the resilience. Desalination plants also produces high carbon footprints, and this conflicts with other sustainable development goals as well. And all the time, data collection and reporting are always a challenge. Also, the UAE looks at the nexus of water, energy, and food in very deep interlinkages between the three, or what we call it the WFE nexus. The close interdependence between the water, energy, and food sectors implies that their management should be addressed simultaneously. We cannot solve one problem and not considering the other. So the three problems are actually interrelated, and it's part of the national security and the main security of the country. To increase the energy efficiency in water and agriculture sectors and reduce the water footprint in energy and agriculture sector simultaneously. Equally important, no doubt that this nexus of WEF could help to create opportunities for entrepreneurs development, also gender empowerment, and more of foreign direct investment. So this is a great area for business to come to the UAE to invest in. And the UAE actually has recognized the importance of this nexus by appointing a minister of state for food and water security, and the responsibility also include in conducting research and applying modern technology to achieve water and food security. How did the UAE manage the water challenges, all these challenges? What did the UAE do so far? Actually, these are the four main aspects or ways or tools of dealing with this challenge. From the legal perspective, there are federal rules, actually water legal laws closely linked to the federal structure. Laws exist at the federal structure, but each emirate issues its own laws and decrees to regulate or control or protect its water resources. So these are the main four laws that are acting or related to the water security. Law number 24, 1999, these are all federal laws. The second, also one of at the federal level, one very noticeable ban happened in 2012 was by the Ministry of Environment and Water. banning export on bottled water produced from local groundwater. And this was also a disincentive to misuse the groundwater. This decision aimed to enhance water security, protect underground resources from depletion, and ensure their sustainability for present and future generations. The second way of facing the challenges by policies and regulations, strategies and initiatives, and then it comes to the agreement. The recent agreement, the Abraham Accord, is one of the ways to face the UAE challenges. For the policies, the UAE has conducted several policies in different sectors to face the challenges. In the private sector, the household sector, new tariff system has been introduced on a water meter, mass awareness campaigns, new methods of irrigation, such as subsurface drip irrigation, supply of safe drinking water through taps, and so forth. In the agriculture sector, new irrigation techniques, more efficient ones, such as drip irrigation, which use 35% less water than traditional system. And moving away, and this was very serious move, moving away from the crops that are water intensive and experimenting with the use of wastewater for irrigation. In the industrial sector, most of the water used are again used for, or the wastewater used to for cooling and clean impurities from machinery. And the wastewater produced is not lost and can be used for irrigation. UAE recently also has launched the data management and automation platform at Mata, which uses digital platforms for water collection and management. These are also a couple of strategies, not a couple, a number of strategies and initiatives announced by the UAE in relation to water security, National Energy Security 2050 in 2017, to increase the contribution of clean energy in total energy mix, and UAE Water Security 2036, launched in 2018, UAE Food Security Strategy 2051, launched in 2019, to implement resilient agriculture practices that increase productivity and production and maintain the ecosystem. These are other national strategies related to water management. You can list them. What does this indicate? It indicates how important water security at the top agenda of the decision maker and policy maker. Currently, before maybe 2 years ago, investing in water was prohibited by any other entity than the government. And it has been long time at this way, being a security matter, higher security matter. Recently, we have two agreements. The Emirates Water and Electricity Company and Aqua Power signed the water purchase agreement for the world's largest reverse osmosis desalination facility in January 2019. Aqua Power is a very well-known company in water desalination. And they started to build the first standalone independent water project, El Tawila IWP, with $900 million dollars, is expected to produce 909,000 cubic meter of water a day. This project completion is expected to be in October 2022. So this was a change in the policy, but not that much change. The much change is coming in November 2020, when UAE and Israeli firms sign agreement on water security, and Abu Dhabi, this was within Abu Dhabi-based Al Dahra holding company, has signed a strategic partnership with the Israeli firm Watergen to produce water from the air. And according to WAM, the agreement aims to build a strategic partnership between the two sides to provide water from the air and add a renewable source of clean water suitable for human and agriculture consumption. Now, what are the opportunities in the UAE market? UAE being the #1 Arab world ease of doing business and number 11 globally on ease of doing business, #1 in the Arab world on the most attractive destination for FDI, for indirect investment, and 30 globally for the destination of FDI. FDI in the UAE, or foreign direct investment infrastructure sector, will have favor sustainable mobility. So there is a great attraction of any field of sustainable or renewable energy, water and wastewater treatment, from being, since these things are on the top agenda of the country. And investing in the UAE water, energy, food market, engaging with the right stakeholders is a really pivotal.
I think that we are going to conclude.
Yes, we are going to conclude. The Abraham Accords Agreement gives a great investment opportunities in water sustainability, sustainability being the key issue for the two countries. And both countries face challenges around the certification and water supply. The renewable energy sector is an opportunity to meet the two countries' need for sustainable water, food, and energy security. Emirati Masdar has shown interest in expanding its renewable projects portfolio to Israel, and Israel expertise in renewable energy production is very well known, as mentioned also today, especially in the solar power. Israel leads efficient desalination projects with the use of limestone and dolostone aquifers and its water supply system. Again, these are different sectors where investors can look at related to water. Water plants, black and gray water separation, water wastewater equipments, rainfall technologies, groundwater technologies, global access to clean drinking water. What's next? Much adaptiveness needed and fluidity, different climatic and regulatory culture contrasts compared to other regions. These things the Israelis need to think about when coming to this sector, complete integrated system of change. Given that WEF security is high on the UAE government agenda, foreign investor needs to showcase their best practices, solution, and expertise by actively engaging with local entities and cultivating those relationships in the long term. Creating water collaboration task force along with business council will facilitate such investment. These were my main recommendations, and I would like to thank you for your listening, and any comments are welcome, and over to you. Thank you.
So thanks to you, Dr. and Professor Susanna El-Massah. You, in your own exhaustive presentation, very nice and very complete, you touched some critical points such as the water energy nexus, the water footprint, which is so often forgot, and it is absolutely not wisdom under the economical process and political process indeed. The underground protection, which is very important, especially in the desertic area, because we do not know exactly how nature will react when we are going to touch what is down there, sealed from thousands of years. So that is if you allow me to say, a treasure to humanity, and so we have to be very careful in approach of this. And the fact that the government of the United Arab Emirates is making a specific norm on this is something that will increase our hope in the wisdom of humanity that in the last decades did not, under the natural point of view and the environmental point of view, gave us so many satisfactions, as well as you touched the topic of drip irrigation and move away from water-intensive crops. So I do apologize with Honorable Fiamma Nierenstein because we have been not as precise as the protagonist of her panel did, because we have been a bit longer compared to the first forecast, but the passion that is touching the field of water is beyond the capability of a dam given by the watch. And so we do apologize also with our patriarch, since we mentioned Abraham, which is Giulio Terzi, and so I leave the floor to Giulio Terzi for the final conclusion on this panel. Thank you so much, and thanks again to the ladies of our panels.
Thank you very much, Professor Leto, and many thanks to the panelists of this discussion.
It is gone. We don't listen to you anymore, unfortunately. We don't hear Giulio, unfortunately.
Ambassador, I think I'm getting my voice.
Yes,
Can
now
you hear me?
We hear you fine. That's it. Fantastic.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. No, I was saying thank you very much to the chair of this panel on water and sustainable development, Professor Alessandro Leto, and his presentation at the beginning to open up the floor and giving with such experienced and learned insight. Coming back from, I was very much fascinated by what he said about the meaning of this struggle, regional struggle for water, but also in general for interest in survival 2,000 years ago, in very ancient times, which was there already evident, this question of scarcity of resources in this region, and that is something that comes to the mind when we listen to Ambassador Gold about. Was very touched by his reference to the need to depoliticize this water diplomacy, but water strategies, water stress. And in that sense, the sense of depoliticizing the relationship between the Abraham Accords countries, Israel, Bahrain, the Emirates, but also in perspective, Sudan, meaning of this Middle East and North Africa area, this aspect of catching a common denominator between these countries, the countries which are signatory parts, or at least they are almost signatory parts, because they are driven by same interest in the Gulf Cooperation country, Gulf Cooperation Council, for instance, and in the relations with the European Union, and that is a major point. How to establish an institutional, I would say, much more than a dialogue, an institutional framework, but even a framework is not enough, because we have with those frameworks so many old experiences which have not been very successful. But now it is really the time, since we are in a completely new dimension of geopolitical balances, thanks to the Abraham Peace Accords, to establish an institutional relation with the European Union on different grounds. And panel before, Josef Cooperwasser and the other panelists were going to, they had explained already what is also the fact of space technologies, which would be a very important bridge in your part of the world and our part of the world, the European Union and the MENA countries. So this is something. Water is another key issue. It is space and telecommunication technologies, with all the implications that they have, for our condition of life, for economic progress, for the advancement of our societies, if they are so important, space and ICT. So water, on the other hand, sustainable development is even more important, if you can say, because it comes to the question of everyday life, and in some cases, when there is such a huge water stress, even everyday survival in some regions. So I have many questions which have been asked to the panelists of this distinguished group, but the answer to some of them, for instance, one question is how the scientific technological cooperation in the area of the Abraham Peace Accords could be enhanced through a more intense cooperation with the European Union in order to reduce the general water stress which is met. But I think what we heard about the
against the sound is gone, unfortunately, dear Giulio.
But also in perspective. So you want to go on? I was on a good connection before, but
we are in trouble, dear Giulio. We're really in trouble because we don't hear you anymore. And I don't know if there is a time limit for the conference of today. I know that, for instance, both in...
No, è un problema di connessione dell'ambasciatore. È un problema di connessione di Giulio. Me lo segnalano i nostri tecnici, è un problema di connessione di Giulio, gli altri vanno tutti bene. È un problema della linea.
Well, as in they are going to approach the dinner time, and so I don't want to delay.
Ma ascolta, ho sbagliato l'ultima volta con questo
to understand how to behave in these circumstances.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I do, but not Giulio, unfortunately.
That's too bad. I mean, this is exactly the reason why I'm stepping in, and otherwise I wouldn't do it. I mean, if you could hear him.
Oh, now he's mute. Now he's mute. Giulio's mute.
Giulio, if you are mute, try to unmute it. Try to click it. Giulio, send him a message.
Okay, so
I will. Giulio, unmute. I'm writing him. Giulio, but I think that he has a general problem of connection because I see he's not moving anymore. Right?
Giulio, non riusciamo più a vederti e sentirti. Pronto?
No, sì, ma non si muove.
La connessione va bene con tutti, è la connessione con Giulio che non va bene, Fiamma.
Cosa mi devi fare allora? Ci sei di nuovo? Ah, ecco, ok, perfetto. So Giulio, welcome back.
Dov'è Giulio? Non lo vedo.
Here I am. Okay.
Bene,
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. No, I'm very sorry. That shows that cooperation in space between the Abraham Peace Accords countries and the European Union, especially with Rome, could enhance our communication and internet and G5 and 5G or 6G. That is something that we have to look into. So it is also Italian national interest to be part of this enhanced cooperation between your region and our region. No, I want just to conclude and apologize for this difficulty with my audio. I was just noticing that what has been said a few minutes ago by Dr. Hanan Al-Bouflaza and by Professor Dr. Susanna Elmaseh are already an answer to a number of questions that I had received from people who were following with a lot of interest, according to the question that I received, our debate. And there were two or three which are more important. One of the general, in a very general sense, there was a question after the exposition, after the intervention of Ambassador Gold, asking whether we can imagine that the new administration, new American administration, would be as supportive as the previous one of this initiative, of these developments. I don't want to give an answer which is more in the hands of my Israeli friends, Dr. Yossi Kuperwasser or Ambassador Dori Gold or Fiamma Nierenstein. So I would like to leave them to answer very briefly. But quite frankly, I have to anticipate that the impression that I have is that definitely, yes, it is a strong commitment from the United States, the new American administration. The other question that was asked, how much the Europeans can help in enhancing scientific cooperation and water diplomacy in terms of finding, developing, researching, developing, and expanding the existing technologies in order to reduce the water stress in the Gulf cooperation countries areas, and especially the Abraham Peace Accord area. These are the two main questions. I've tried to answer already with a yes or no to the first one, but if Yossi has a good element of Fiamma, they are interested in saying something. And the second one, I would like to leave to the distinguished panelist, Dr. Al-Bouflaza and Dr. El-Massa, if they think there is still time to say a couple of words. Thank you very much.
Please, Yossi, first you.
Well, I say one word. I'm sure that the American administration is going to be committed to the Abraham Accords and will try to promote them. But there's a difference between those who own it and those who just got something, inherited something. That's, the enthusiasm, the commitment is a little bit lacking. I hope that with time, if they manage to have one success, they will be able to be more inclined to really push it forward. And we shall see. But you know, obviously what they say is that they are supporting it and they are committed. But at the same time, we know that they were reassessing whether they are going to follow the previous administration commitments on certain issues. So we hear the words, but we are still waiting to see the enthusiasm.
Allora, for me, can you hear me? Allora, in my opinion, it will not be the same enthusiasm that we had before. No. I don't think so, and there are several signs that it won't be. But I'm optimist, and I hope that we will be able to defend something that is so much convenient for all of us. It's convenient for all the world. It's convenient for Israel. It's convenient for the countries that are part of it, and for all the rest of the world. So it's such a clever and interesting map, the one that has been drawn by the Accords, and it gives also such an important push to the relationship between the three religions and to the human rights fight all over the world, that there will be many that wants to handle the torch and bring it over. But we have to defend it. So without entering too much now in the geopolitical issues concerning this point, I will only underline that there are many geopolitical issues about it, and they are not indifferent. They are as large as the Middle East and beyond it. And we have got to be very careful to preserve the patrimony of peace and friendship that has been accumulated with the Abramo Accords, and to defend it as much as we can. I finish saying that I'm very glad that from the first to the second panel, we now have a very concrete and clever list that was just put down by our panelists one by one, with so many fundamental issues, and so clear and so evident that we can go on working on that. We have a calendar. We have a way that we can work out, and this is our commitment, and this is what we will do. I stop now because I understand that it's very late and we have done the utmost of our time, and I thank you so much. And I want to tell you that I am so delighted to have been in company of you gentlemen, but particularly of my friends and colleagues women, that I'm so delighted when I am with so delightful and gracious and clever persons that all belong to the reign of...
Ci vediamo in Sicilia.
Senz'altro.
Ci vediamo in Sicilia.
Ci vediamo in Sicilia, and I would like also to add special thanks to President Benedetto, to Fiamma, to all the panelists, Ambassador Gold, to the distinguished personalities that I've seen on the video. Dr. Dan Dijker, a great friend, panelist in other discussion that we had, always very supportive and important. Also to Eureka Saragarino, who is the representative of an important think tank, with also is involved from time to time with our discussion. But I would like also to conclude, really, President Benedetto, if you allow me, that this panel shows that we are on a right track. When we discussed within the Fondazione Einaudi, yes, there is this event in Sicily in late June, but there is something that we are going to do earlier, to put together, if there is an agreement among the panelists today, or the people who have attended this discussion, the idea to gather a focus group of like-minded participants, a few persons available to bring this discussion to Brussels, in the European Parliament, among the European institutions, of course, in an informal way, like an expression of a group of think tanks, but we know that there is a lot of listening in Brussels among the political levels and the administrative level of the Commission to this kind of initiatives. So I believe that this is going, Fiamma and myself, Giuseppe Benedetto, and all his organization, and the other group, I believe, I hope that our friends in Jerusalem and in the European and in the Gulf countries and the Water Academy are also on board, could be on board from the expression that they see, to put together a sort of a permanent forum to bring these issues in the water, sustainable development. But another question that Josip Ravasser mentioned, the idea, or even other panelists brought up, the idea of having a true task force on space issues, and there are so many things going on. Israel, but I was very interested in listening to the Bahrain experience on a space agency, and we know that the Emirates have the same. And we know that there are, Fiamma has mentioned initiatives between India and United Arab
Right. Oh, again.
Again, unfortunately. In any case, no women, no panel. This is the truth.
So it is a ferry of to possibly be organized and that to Florida. Thanks a lot and keep posted on this platform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Senz'altro. Grazie.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Grazie.
Bye.